Hello and welcome to the Strong, Healthy, Happy podcast. Today is my community check in for my group coaching ladies. They are at the end of week 5. I don't know how 5 weeks have passed by. It seems like only yesterday that we began coaching, but there has been some incredible progress within the group, not just in weight loss and seeing those scales move and seeing the visual progress, but seeing and hearing from the ladies how much better they're feeling and how much more energy they're having and how more activity and movement they're doing now in their day compared to previous, and just generally feeling so much better in themselves, mentally and physically, visually, externally, but also feeling good on the inside. And it's so great to hear. Now, I'm going to start the check this podcast in the normal way of reading through the wins of my clients and where I give advice and where I go through onto challenges. If you're not in my group coaching and you've stumbled across this podcast and you're like, what am I listening to? This isn't for me. If you're trying to improve your health and you're looking to lose weight, this podcast is absolutely for you. And a lot of the common challenges my clients are experiencing through their coaching may be things that also apply to you in your own journey. And you're going to learn from this podcast some really good tips that you're able to apply to your lives. And obviously, for my clients, feeding back and supporting them is obviously going to help them in their journey. Now, let's start with the wins, and I'm going to start with Debbie today. Her wins this week is she tried on some summer clothes and felt nicer in them. She also caught herself in the mirror and the gym, and she thought she looked healthier. And I absolutely love this, Debbie, because your clothes are a really great indicator of your progress, irrespective of what the scales say. Remember, the scales don't always accurately measure body fat loss. Your scale weight is your total weight, and feeling that your clothes are feeling and fitting nicer is a great way for you to measure your progress. Now, Sonia's win is her plateau has shifted, as she says in her words. Now, last week, one of the challenges and things I talked about was what happens when you reach a plateau when you're trying to lose weight. And I fed back last week and I advised through my podcast that often when a plateau is reached, there's nothing really different that needs to happen. It's not about eating less calories or changing anything. It's usually just about staying consistent and also noticing if any of your behaviors have drifted slightly. And when I say drifted, sometimes like you might find that you're picking food, whereas before you really stopped that when you started your diet or when you started coaching, but it's been coming back in and you're eating food that perhaps you're not accounting for. And just it's normal for our behaviors to slip. Sometimes that just happens over time, but bringing your awareness back can usually be all that you need to do to get you through that plateau. And for Sonia, it's definitely worked. She's also hit 10,000 steps with a bad foot, and she's achieved her step target pretty much every day. Now, Sonia has bashed her toe. It's rich. She's shown us all a picture in the group chat, and it looks really sore. She's now on antibiotics, but even with the hindrance and the pain her toe has caused her, she has focused on what she can do, and she's moved and done her steps to the very best of her ability. And yeah, the scales have come down as a result, and she's feeling good for it. Now, Vicky, her wins this week is she is snacking less. Vicky was previously a bit of an evening snacker. She is now snacking less. She's being much more mindful when she's eating, and she's really tuning in to noticing when she's 80% full. Now, the 80% full is a really easy tip. I've talked about it a lot on my previous podcasts, And eating to 80% full, if you're trying to lose weight, is a really simple thing for you to do, no matter what you're eating or where you're eating, who cooked it, whether you're tracking or not. It's a really simple way for you to think about your level of fullness from the food that you're eating. And eating to 80% full means, in sort of easy to understand way, is you're eating to mild fullness. You could definitely eat more, but you're going to choose to stop because this is representing you being in a bit of a deficit. And so you're not eating to 100% satisfaction. You're just leaving a little bit wanting, not starving, just a little bit wanting. And that's representing a calorie deficit. And it's something you can apply in any circumstances, anywhere, and no one need know. And Rebecca, she has done all her workouts this week, which is a big achievement because last week she was struggling to get her workouts done around her longer work hours. And she also has a family. So her getting those workouts done this week has taken some planning and some scheduling and prioritizing that time. And she's got it done. Now, Carolyn has been an absolute superstar this week. She took part in an event called Endure 24, which the clue is in the title. It was a running event in a team that went on for 24 hours in a relay format. And she's ended up clocking 25 miles plus walking to and from the event. So huge expenditure for Carolyn, but also a fantastic achievement for her and her team in that event. Now, she is struggling this week with a bit of sleep deprivation due to her dog waking at 4:30 a.m. Her dog is unwell and he's on steroids. And she's one of her wins with bearing her dog and her dog waking early in mind is that she's resisted the temptation of not giving in to sugar and has asked me a question: how to sedate a dog on steroids? And I can't help you with that, Carolyn. Perhaps speak to your vet. But let's talk about your win of resisting the temptation of giving into sugar to get you through the days, how you've described it. And it's because of your sleep deprivation. And just to explain that when we're tired or had lack of sleep, or even poor quality sleep, it can distort our hormones that send signals to us to signal hunger and that we need to eat, as well as the hormones that signal that we are reaching fullness. And so when you've had poor quality or lack of quality sleep, those hormones can become dysregulated, and it's really easy to overeat because we feel tired, because our hormones are out of whack, and because we're feeling tired and have a lack of energy. And when we have low energy, our body drives us to eat to increase our energy. And getting sufficient sleep is really important. And funnily enough, there are a few clients this week that have talked about poor quality sleep, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in this podcast. But in regards to sugar, obviously, short term, sugar may give you that fix and that surge of energy, but long term, you're going to have a dip and a low, and you're probably not going to feel very satisfied long term. You're going to crave more, and you'll probably look for more sugary foods. So, I would advise you to really try and fuel your body with nutritious food that helps regulate your hunger and keep you satiated and full, and obviously manage your sleep, which I'm going to talk about. Now, Stella, her wins this week is she has managed to stay within her calorie target despite being stressed in her final year at university and the intense workload in her final week. She hasn't been able to get her steps in, but Stella has proved that you can still make progress without needing to do things perfectly. And I find that when I coach women or when I first start talking to potential clients is this drive to do things perfectly, when in fact I actively encourage my clients not to be perfect, Because the problem with trying to do things perfectly or aiming to do things perfectly is when you can't achieve perfection, the chances are you're going to quit. And then by quitting, you're actually setting yourself further back from where you really want to be. So taking on the approach that things may not be perfect, they may be imperfect, but you're going to do your best in the circumstances that you're in. And this is known as imperfect action. And since we started coaching 5 weeks ago, Stella has lost 9 pounds. And along with that weight loss, she is more active, she is feeling healthier and fitter and a lot better for it. And she also recognizes, and this is a really big win, that prior to coaching, she probably would have eaten junk food as a way of coping with the stress. And stress and emotional eating is very common. And it is an area that I support my clients with. And there are ways to overcome emotional eating with sort of individualized and certain techniques and strategies to help reduce emotional eating. And it's really great to hear that Stella has been able to do that. Now, in terms of challenges amongst my community this week, um, I'm going to talk about negative self talk because one of my clients has recognized that she slipped into um, speaking to herself in a really negative way and feeling like she can't fully achieve her goals, and that perhaps she's just not the person who can achieve those goals. And I want to start by saying and reassuring you, to my client that has said this, and to anybody listening that often talks to themselves in a negative way, negative self talk, or feeling like it's just impossible for you to achieve your goals. I really do want to reassure you that everyone has the capability to achieve their goals. And I'm going to break down the issues that may have led to you feeling like this. And before I do that, I do want to reassure my client that she has made so many positive changes in the 5 weeks of the Feel Great Lose Weight group coaching method. And we are so quick as humans to find fault within ourselves or call ourselves out on all those things that we don't do right or that we may not do as well as we had wanted, as opposed to stopping for a moment and recognizing all the things we've done well. Um, and so reframing how you speak to yourself, reframing certain situations instead of berating yourself for the things you haven't done. Recognize what you have done and celebrate them. So for example, if you were previously emotionally eating most evenings, eating in a mindless state, snacking on high calorie, crappy foods most evenings, and now you aren't, or perhaps it's just reduced to a couple of evenings, this is a huge win. Instead of berating yourself for the 2 evenings you did snack and overeat, recognize and celebrate the wins of the 5 nights that you didn't emotionally eat and eat crap. Or perhaps your steps used to be really low and now you're moving more and your steps generally are a lot higher than they were previously. Even if you haven't quite hit your target, recognize your progress in the sense that your steps are higher than they were previous. Switch things round, flip things on its head, reframe it, and find those wins and celebrate them and recognize them. Your wins help you move forwards and to keep taking those steps towards your goal. If you berate yourself and shame yourself and think that you can't do things, then the chances are you won't achieve them. But if you celebrate your wins, no matter how small, it will keep you working forwards. And there's no rush to get to any end goal, because when you get to your end goal, nothing really changes, because you're going to have to do the same things that got you to your goal to maintain your goal. So don't worry about getting there quickly. Now, in terms of setting yourself up for success, it's really important to set yourself realistic expectations, because if you are setting yourself high expectations that are impossible for you to achieve around your busy life and any other pressures and commitments that you're going through, you're setting yourself up to fail. So it's important to reevaluate the expectations that you're placing upon yourself. Lowering your expectations doesn't mean that you've failed or you're less than. It means that you're setting yourself up in a more realistic way to achieve and gain success and feel that sense of accomplishment, because that sense of accomplishment is what you need in order to continue making progress and moving forwards. Instead of striving for perfection, aim for imperfect action. You do not have to be perfect, and that applies to all areas of your life, not just in terms of health and weight loss. When you let go of striving for perfection, it's really freeing, and accepting that things don't have to be perfect will actually take you closer to your goal. Focus on consistency, even if it's not perfect, and recognize that small steps are moving you forwards. Doesn't matter how slow, because the small steps that are moving you forwards are going faster than when you used to quit and then you would go backwards. You are still moving forwards with small steps. Okay, so another challenge that's come up this week is sticking to calories. And I want to just apply this to whether you're tracking or uploading food photos. Now, as part of group coaching, my clients are using my coaching app, and their chosen form of food tracking uploads to the app. It does give me visibility. I'm not going through it with a fine tune comb as part of the group coaching. If there's any concerns, then I will look at food diaries or food photos. The check-in form asks various questions that give me an idea whether clients are struggling to hit targets, stay within their calorie range. We don't hit a number on the nose. My clients have a calorie range so that, some days you may feel less hungry, some days more hungry, and you have a calorie range that is more realistic for you to stick to depending on how you're feeling. Now, with tracking and uploading food photos, doing both of these things and doing them consistently and accurately throughout the day is a really great way for you to take a pause before eating. So if you're tracking, I always advise tracking in advance, because tracking retrospectively from memory at the end of the day with the best intention and the best will in the world, you're going to forget foods, and then your tracking won't be accurate. And you will forget foods that you've eaten, and what that number you're tracking may not actually be the amount of calories that you've eaten. And obviously, with food photos, you're taking a photo of your plate of food or your bowl of food. So you are obviously taking that before you eat. Both those methods give you a moment to pause before eating, and they slow you down, which is a really good thing. And the reason why slowing down is a good thing is because it helps you eat in a more mindful state and to slow down your eating. And therefore, it will aid your digestion. It will also aid the pleasure that you're gaining from your food. And it will also enable you to notice feelings of fullness and not go past that because you've eaten so quickly that your hormones are delayed. Your hormone that signals fullness is not delayed because you've eaten so quickly, and it can't get that signal out to you quick enough. So I would really encourage you to track or add your food photos consistently throughout the day. And remember that I never have judgment as your coach. I'm not going to look at your entries and cast judgment. I am only here to support you and coach you to the very best of my ability. And if I do go through your diary, your food diaries, it just enables me to be able to feedback and make recommendations when needed. Also, just to point out as well that when you're in a calorie deficit and you're trying to lose weight, I always encourage my clients to focus on what they can add to their meals, not take away, not remove, not restrict or over restrict. I want my clients to add to their meals to improve the quality of the food they're eating. And one of their goals is to add vegetables or fruit to every meal, obviously, depending the meal type. One may lend itself better than the other. It's completely up to my clients to decide what they want to add to their meals. It's dependent on the meal type and their personal preference. But the reason why I encourage adding vegetables, which can be veg or salad, or fruit to their meals is because of the added nutrients which benefit your health that is found in veg and fruit, and also the increased fiber from vegetables and fruit will also benefit your digestion, your gut health, and help keep you full, which, when in a calorie deficit, is a really good idea. Um, Both vegetables and fruit are beneficial to your health, but it is worth noting that vegetables are usually much lower in calories and can really add volume to your meals so that your plate is full. And when you create high volume meals and you go through the process of eating your meal and chewing your food, it gives you a lot more satisfaction as well. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, the idea is that you want to reduce the amount of calories you're eating. Whether you're tracking or not, it comes down to reducing your calories. And it is a really smart way to reduce your calories by just reducing your carb portion. You don't have to take it out, but say, you have what your usual serving of rice might be, just reducing it and filling the space that that rice would have taken up if it had been a larger portion, just replacing it with more veg, because veg will come in at a lower calorie cost, but you're not actually having less food to eat. You're just reducing the carbs. Now, carbs aren't bad. Carbs don't make you gain body fat, but carbs are just a really easy food group to reduce. And it really helps you increase the volume and the quality of your food by increasing the veg. Now, I don't want any of my clients to fear fruit or the naturally occurring fruit found in sugars, because fruit is really beneficial to your health. It's full of fiber and full of nutrients. But be mindful that some fruit is a lot higher in calories than other fruit. And if you're trying to reduce your calories, always track your fruit, or photograph it if you're eating it, because the calories do add up from fruit. There are some fruits that are lower in calories, like all your berries, melons, kiwis, satsuma, plums, nectarines, rhubarbs. They're all in season, they're all delicious, and they're all very calorie efficient and will help make you feel good. Now, Tara says she's really rubbish with adding fruit. Strawberries don't last long in the house and they're usually gone very quickly. She did buy frozen fruit, but forgets to use it and it's still in the freezer. And what I would say is it's really smart that you bought frozen fruit, because it's so quick to blast in the microwave and add to your yogurt or your porridge oats or whatever it is that you're wanting to add fruit to. And if you make overnight oats as one of your breakfast meals, you can just add frozen berries to your overnight oats mixture and they will defrost overnight whilst they're in the fridge. So just try and remind yourself or stick a post-it note up that you've got fruit in the freezer, and you'll build the habit of reaching for that fruit. And it's great to have in the freezer as a reserve when your fresh varieties have reduced or gone. And you've got a couple of daughters, so they're going to eat fruit, and it's great that they're eating fruit, and strawberries are very delicious. Now, staying with challenges, fitting in steps and finding time to work out. One of my clients has said that she's finding it easier to do a 10-minute workout when she can, rather than 30 minutes all in one go. And what I would say is something is always better than nothing. It's still worth doing, Don't ever take the approach that it's not worth it so that you then don't do it. It is always worth it. I would try and maybe add another 5 minutes onto that 10-minute workout. But if you can't, 10 minutes is better than not doing anything at all. And longer doesn't always mean better. If you do have the time, then obviously you can, take advantage of that and do a longer workout. But I would rather you do what you can when you can. And then in terms of finding time for steps, think about ways that you can increase your steps without much effort. So if you're at a desk-based job, try and get up and move about and get up from your desk. If you're on a phone call, maybe stand up. And if you can even walk and talk, even better. If you're driving to work, maybe get out your car a little bit earlier, park up a little bit before your workplace of work and walk the last bit, meaning that you're going to have to then finish work and walk back to your car. May only add another 5 minutes onto the actual time it takes to get to work, depending how far you park away. When you're going to the supermarket, don't park as near to the door as possible. And, if you're working from home and you work downstairs, use the toilet upstairs or vice versa, and just think of ways to increase your steps. Now, when it comes to steps, my clients have individual step targets based on where they start and where they currently are at. And then I try and progress them gradually to get them into a healthy range to support their health and their goal. As a general guidance, I would always recommend trying to hit a minimum of 7,000 steps a day for general health. And it is really important to try not to let your steps reduce lower than 7,000. Also think about whether you can get up, 15 minutes earlier in the morning and just do a 10-minute walk before you start your day, however your day is going to look. 10 minutes, you can get enough steps in to start your day off. You'll find you'll have much more energy, a better mood, and be more productive at your desk. Now, another of my clients is going through a really stressful time. It's going to impact her emotionally, and it's also going to place restriction on her time and her ability to get things done. She knows it's just for a short period, but she is going to be spending time out of the house, caring for a family member in hospital. And she wants to know, she recognizes that she does want to try her best to keep progressing towards her goal. And this is where planning is going to be really key, to make sure that you have food prepared and that you have food in your house that's easy for you to take with you to the hospital, as well as maybe cook a meal in advance and know that you've got it and that it's easy accessible for you to eat, whether it's at home or that you take with you to the hospital. Now, sandwiches and wraps are really great ideas. You can fill them with high protein of choice, whatever it is, whether it's meat slices, tuna, whatever it is that you like. Pack in the protein filling, sandwiches and wraps. You can even, just take in, if you don't want to start preparing, you can just buy carrot battens, cherry tomatoes, or something that gives you added veg. Also take in yogurt and fruit. And if you're there in the evening, or you really want a meal that's more substantial and maybe more comforting, and you want something hot, think about getting yourself a food flask. You can find them in most supermarkets. And it's a really convenient way to take hot food with you to the hospital. And if you prepare something like a bolognese but with rice, it makes it easy to spoon out of the food flask. When you're in the hospital, try and get up at intervals, walk around whenever you can, pop out for some fresh air, and remember to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your relative. Now, a few questions I've had this week. I've covered some of this off already, but some of the feedback I've had is I am much more mindful about what I'm eating and drinking. I'm not perfect, but I am making mindful choices with my overall health and happiness in mind. This is feedback, sorry, not a question. And it's really great to hear that, my client is learning to be more mindful and recognize what she's eating and drinking, make choices to support her goal, and not try to be perfect. and that she's feeling healthier and happier. I have been asked a question about tips for coping with tiredness, and this has been brought up by a few of my clients this week. I've already covered off that tiredness can skew your hunger hormones and your feeling of fullness. And obviously, feeling tired is going to lead to low mood, low energy, and it's not really going to make you feel great. Now, sometimes getting good quality sleep, some things are beyond our control. Like you can't control, for example, my client whose dog's waking up at 4:30 in the morning. It may just be temporary at this moment. She's already recognized that she's going to try and get to bed earlier, and this ties in with one of the tips that I was going to recommend, and that is, if you're not already setting yourself a bedtime and a wake time, and it might sound really silly as an adult, because you're not a kid with a bedtime. But as an adult, supporting your sleep is just as important as a child supporting their sleep. So set yourself a bedtime, whatever that bedtime is for you. Whatever time your bedtime is, that you want to be in bed with the light off, starting to relax and go to sleep, I would recommend 30 minutes prior to that is you start the process of going up to bed. Because if you're anything like me, it takes me 30 minutes to get into bed, tidy up the kitchen, get up the stairs, take the laundry up with me, etc. So give yourself time to get up to bed. It is also really important to come off your phone at least 30 minutes prior to bed. If you're lying in bed scrolling on your phone, you are stimulating yourself and you're not setting yourself up for a successful night of sleep. So please give yourself some wind down time and come off your phone at least 30 minutes prior to bed. It is a really good idea to have a wake time as well, so that you're getting up pretty much the same time each day. Now, it might, be slightly later on a weekend or on a day that you're not working, but keep it within an hour or so of your usual time, and you'll really get your circadian rhythm in a nice place, regulated, and you'll find you'll begin to know when your bedtime's approaching, and you'll start waking up naturally without the use of an alarm. And if you haven't already discovered Apple Health, for anyone with an Apple phone, you can set a bedtime and wake time on your Apple phone. And it's really useful and a really nice way to wake up in the morning. Last thing I'm going to comment on is one of the questions in my check-in form is asking clients to write down what they're enjoying about the process. And this client has fed back that she's feeling really supported and enjoying the process, and she wants to keep moving in the right direction. She will be so disappointed if she gives up, and she's looking forward to another positive week ahead. And what I want to say is that you're not going to be giving up. You're in a supportive environment. We have regular communication in our group chat, and I support my clients daily. And if anybody is struggling, to always put a message in the group, tag me, and I can support you. I have your back, and I am championing all my clients to achieve their goals. Thank you for joining me. And I will catch up with you next week as the final week of my group coaching program. And if you're listening to this and you would like to join the next 6-week group coaching, please contact me through any of my social media contacts that are in the show notes, or reach out to me via email. Please do get in touch. Ask me questions. And if you want to be added to the next group coaching waitlist, just contact me, and I look forward to hearing from you. And a huge well done to all my clients.